Welcome back to Hungry for History. This is the last episode of our pumpkin history series. In the last two episodes, we talk about the origin of pumpkins, how Native Americans and Europeans used pumpkins. In today's episode, we are going to talk about how pumpkins rose from the poor people's food to the most sought after food produced in the US. Let's get it started! In the 18th century, pumpkins were no longer a staple crop for the European colonists. Transatlantic trades introduced New World crops like potatoes, sweet potatoes, tomatoes, and maize back to Europe. But pumpkins was not one of those commercial crops exported overseas for profit. Enslaved laborers grow pumpkins in their garden patches to complement their meager diet. George Washington in his diary mentioned large quantities of cabbages, carrots, and pumpkins were grown to supply enslaved laborers that worked on his plantations. The term pumpkin eater was originally used by Europeans to refer to American settlers who were deemed as social outcasts. As black slaves adopted pumpkins as a staple, pumpkin eater became a racial slur in the South. This makes me wonder if this is the reason why many Southerners preferred sweet potato pie to a pumpkin pie. Although pumpkins were scorned as the food of the rural poor, some Americans find a sense of pride and identity in the fruit. After the Revolutionary War in 1796, Amelia Simmons of Connecticut published the first American cookbook, American Cookery, as the previous cookbooks were published in Europe and later introduced into the US. This is also the first cookbook that relied on native-grown agricultural produce. In the coming year, I will have an episode devoted to the first American cookbook. Maybe I can have a poll about which dish from the book you want me to make in this video. Simmons claimed herself an American orphan, which was common rhetoric used to describe the American relationship to its English motherland during the war. Simmons offers two pumpkin pie recipes. One with top crust calls for sugar, cream, and more spices. Another one is without top crust, which only asks for molasses, a cheap substitute for sugar, and fewer spices. The two recipes suggested that Simmons intended to make pumpkin pie affordable to both wealthy and poor people. Since Simmons' time, pumpkin pie recipes haven't changed much, and pumpkin pie has been part of national meal on Thanksgiving. In some cookbooks published in the 19th century, pumpkin pie is also called pumpkin pudding, but some other cookbooks describe it much older than pumpkin pie, and recommend it as part of a winter or Christmas meal. The Domestic Encyclopedia, published in 1821, has a pumpkin pudding recipe. Quote, pumpkin pudding. Take 1 quart of stewed and strained pumpkin, add 9 beaten eggs, 3 pints of cream, sugar, mace, nutmeg, and ginger in powder. Bake in dishes 3/4 of an hour, unquote. As Christmas is coming close, I want to show you this simple pumpkin recipe you can easily put together at home. I cannot find fresh pumpkin in December, so we will use canned pumpkin puree for this recipe. And I only have an 8-inch cake pan, so I cut the recipe in half. To make this pumpkin pudding recipe, you need 15-ounce pumpkin puree, 8-ounce heavy cream, 3/4 cup sugar, or any sweetener you prefer, 1 teaspoon cinnamon, half teaspoon ginger, 1/4 teaspoon clove, and 1/4 teaspoon ground nutmeg, and 4 eggs. First, mix the spices and add the blend to the sugar. Add a pinch of salt. Beat the eggs in a large bowl. Stir in the pumpkin puree and the sugar spice mixture. Then pour in the heavy cream. Blend everything together until you have a smooth mixture. If you have a ceramic pie dish, you can skip the next step. If you are like me, only have a cake pan at home, so follow the next step. Cover the bottom of the pan with parchment paper. You can use a bigger pan. Just be aware that baking times vary with depth, size, and type of baking dish, so you have to watch and check. Transfer the pudding mixture into the prepared cake pan. Wrap the pan with aluminum foil because we are going to bake it in a water bath. The foil can prevent the water getting into the pan. Cover the bottom of a deep baking pan with hot water. Gently place the cake pan in the hot water. Bake the pudding in a preheated oven at 350 degrees Fahrenheit for about 50 to 60 minutes until knife inserted near the center come out clean. While the pudding is in the oven, let's continue the history of pumpkins. After the Civil War, the development of intercontinental railroads and federal land grant programs moved the agricultural production gradually from the north to the west. With industrialization and urbanization in the northern states, small farming farms gradually disappeared, and the people living in the cities desire to find a way to feel connected to nature. Seed companies advertise pumpkins as a decorative produce that could be placed in agricultural fairs, show windows, and restaurants to attract customers. Paintings and illustrations that feature pumpkins often evoked a sense of nostalgia to the good and peaceful life on a farm. Of course, carving jack-o'-lantern for Halloween helped to make pumpkin more a crop for entertainment than for food. By the end of the 19th century, in the first half of the 20th century, the continued expansion of cooperative farms, economic recession, and man-made disasters like the dust storms of the 1930s made it difficult for small family farms to survive. In order to cut the cost of shipping and get it into wholesale stores, farmers took advantage of automobile tourism and set up roadside stands to sell agricultural produce to urban dwellers who had spare time and money to tour the countryside. In return, customers get a chance to get reconnected to nature and have a glimpse of rural life. Pumpkins of all shapes and colors were usually piled up to create a feeling of fall and abundant harvest. By 2010, 80% of pumpkins were not even eaten but were put on display as Halloween and autumn decorations. According to historian Cindy Ott, the symbolic meanings pumpkins have created help pumpkins and the related products to sell. That's all I have for the history part. It's time to take out the pudding. I strongly suggest you let it chill in the fridge overnight before you eat it. Now it's time to try out the pumpkin pudding. I let the pudding chill overnight in the fridge and it looks so good. I cannot wait to take the first bite. Take my first bite. It's so creamy. It's like having a pumpkin pie without the crust. Oh my goodness. I'm getting excited for the Christmas because I feel like I wanted to make it for our Christmas this year. And who don't want to cut some extra calories from the crust, right? After spending almost a whole year at home. It's very smooth and it's a very delightful dessert. And this is what I have for you for this Christmas. I hope you would like it. If you make this pumpkin pudding for yourself, please don't forget to leave a message in the comments below and let me know what do you like about it. That's all I have for you today. I wish you a restful holiday. I will see you after Christmas. Bye bye.